President Joe Biden just declared war on the MAGA Republicans in what many people are calling, including Trump, an insane speech. He did it here, you can see, in front of a hellish backdrop with Marines standing at his side, lecturing and pointing at Americans, saying that the soul of America is at stake. And so we are going to piece this together a little bit and actually read through the transcript, because the transcript, we can tease out rapidly what the people who are actually in charge are intending to do. Joe Biden, they literally move him around like a bad, delivery from room to room, and he just reads what's on the screen. But the people who write it, right, they're moving the stuff around. They're moving the pieces around. And we got to pay attention to what they are talking about. But something that really stood out first and foremost was, of course, the backdrop. Now, the backdrop is symbolic, and a lot of people are memeing this into oblivion, and we will do that shortly. But this is also something that I think is symbolic and intentional, and it was highly, highly choreographed. And I want to start there. I want to show you, we're going to read through the speech because the speech is it's very difficult to listen to him say, because he's coughing and he's mumbling and he's stumbling. He's mostly incoherent, which is why most of the major media did not cover this in real time. They wanted you to forget about Joe Biden, because the more you forget about Joe Biden, the better he does in the polls. The more you see him, the less you like him. But this was very well crafted and very orchestrated, and it feels almost like it was the powers that be coordinating the big shift. And on this point, we've talked a lot on this channel about all of the slow domino effects that we've been observing here. The way that it goes from just castigating Donald Trump as the only person responsible for this, to expanding the hula hoop, expanding the spiral to capture everybody else. Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro, then the J6ers, then the people who were not even there on J6, then Sean Hannity and the conservative media. And then it's now all of the MAGA voters. I mean, it's literally everybody. And they have been building this with their focus on the FBI homegrown violent extremism organizations and the militant violent extremists. We heard from Jill Sanborn and agents over at the FBI organizing a response based on Biden's new posture that he just delivered and unveiled to America. And so I want to start by reviewing the entry of the president. Joe Biden walks out to deliver his speech, and before he gets going, you can see the backdrop looks pretty normal, pretty bland, in fact. You've got the American flags there, you've got the brick wall, and you've got this nice entryway Joe Biden's about to walk through. But look at the lighting. It's actually white. It looks like normal lights, and you can see the teleprompters are there ready to be read from by the president. Let's listen and see what happens here. The doors are going to open as the bell tolls, and you're going to see a big American flag back there. The Marines are going to walk out. Joe Biden's going to walk out, and then the lights are going to change. All done for dramatic effect. Let's watch. Now here it comes.
Please welcome the President of the United States and Dr. Jill Biden.
There they go. Very dark red, and the front lights are still on. And they're ruining our good music, wrecking it. But as soon as Biden takes the podium, you're going to notice they have the lights on for the Marines. And after the president takes the podium, they're going to dim those lights back down so that you only get the full breadth of the redness, right? So that Joe Biden pops out against that red backdrop. Right, there it is. And they're going to bring down the back lights, bring up the front lights. Soon as he takes center stage. Now, his caretaker, Jill Biden, is going to drop him off. Like I said, she's like, no, you have to stay over there, honey. Go back over there. Get back over there. And oh yeah, I got to read a speech here. Now watch the lights go out to drown out the Marines.
My fellow Americans.
And there we go.
Please.
We get that nice red backdrop.
Thank you.
Front and center with Joe.
I speak to you tonight from sacred ground in America. Independence Hall.
All right, so he mumbles through the rest of that, and so we'll fast forward through it. But before we jump into the transcript where we read what he actually says here and dissect it piece by piece, because I do think it's important. I do think this is an anchoring in of a new disposition out of this White House. I want to show you what CNN did. Very curious little thing happened. CNN changed the colors of the projection in real time. Somebody on Twitter captured this one. Let's take a look here. Jake Schneider was able to capture this on Twitter. He says, LOL, halfway through Brandon's speech, CNN tried to subtly alter the color of the background lighting, presumably to make it look less evil and creepy. And they really did that.
Democracy cannot survive.
Let's watch this. And we're not going to listen to much Biden, so we'll listen to this 17-second clip. But watch what happens here. Now, if your monitors, kind of drowns out the reds, CNN, you can make adjustments to the camera in real time. I can do this on my new A10 Mini Pro switcher. And it's not that I know how to do it, but you can. And it's something that you can adjust this in real time. So Biden comes out and he starts rambling off, and watch what CNN does. Watch the redness, the red hue change in real time here.
We, the people, accept the results of free and fair elections only if
there it goes.
We, the people,
right to magenta.
See
you see
politics not as total war, but mediation of our differences. Democracy cannot survive when one side. We, the people.
Look at that red there, and we go all the way to the end, and magenta. Red, magenta. Okay, now watch this. When you take a screenshot of this puppy and you put them side by side, here's what you get. And it looks a lot more obvious when you just sort of pair them together side by side, right? That is the prior, the very bright red. This is the add in a little magenta, add a little magenta, and they try to paper over it. It doesn't look any better. It still looks pretty dang bad. It looks a little, maybe a little friendlier, but yeah, it looks pretty bad. And so that is intentional, in my opinion. They choreographed this whole thing. They did it intentionally, and we're going to unpack that in a minute. But before we do, let's dive into the actual meat and potatoes of this very troubling speech. I do have the PDF that came out from the New York Times. Hang on, let me save this real fast. I forgot that I didn't open this one. I want to open this up so that I can mark it up, and we can actually review it in a little bit of detail, because I think that his language is certainly troubling. And if the president's going to come out and blame an entire population of people, then we need to really make sure that we give it some attention. So we actually do have the full transcript that we'll read through. But before we do, let's take a look at what Biden was talking about on Twitter right before he actually gave this speech. He posted this at 5:11 p.m. September 1st, right before he walked out in front of his hellish landscape. He said, Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country. Okay, Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans. Now, as we've talked about, right, there were millions of people, 70 something, who voted for Donald Trump. And so I think what that term MAGA Republican means is all of those people, everybody who voted for Trump. And he walks this back and he tries to sort of, have this both ways. But this is his own statement on Twitter, and everybody knows Twitter is official. So Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country. The president's own words on his Twitter account, September 1, 2022. That is the same time that he's releasing these types of things in front of America. Let's read through it. President Biden came out lecturing America and MAGA Republicans in Philadelphia. He delivered his remarks on Thursday. President Biden said, "My fellow Americans, take a seat. I'm coming to you tonight from Pennsylvania." And he says, "This is where we debated the Constitution. We, the people, we're the greatest nation on earth. And as I stand here today, I got to tell you the truth, talking about equality and democracy being under assault. We do ourselves no favor to pretend otherwise." Now, this is where he gets into some very colorful language. He's talking about specifically threats, okay? And the question that we have as we analyze this is first of all, it's one of the most shocking things that you can hear from a president to basically label half the country as threats. But he says, tonight I've come to a place to be speaking plainly with you. We have to meet these threats if we choose to. He says, we have a burning flame in here. This is the work of my presidency, and I have to be honest. But this is where he gets into the very specific things I want to focus on. Biden says, too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. Right? That phrase, we're not going to let him get away with that one. He says, I want to be very clear. Not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans are MAGA Republicans, which is a kind of a shocking thing to say because there's 70 million of them that voted for Trump. Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology. I know I've worked with some of these Republicans. Now, do you see what he's trying to do? He's trying to say you either agree with me and you are a good Republican or you don't and you are a threat. Not that you're just, somebody I disagree with. You're a threat. He says today, there's no question that the Republican Party is dominated and driven and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And that is a threat to this country. Now, he's going to walk this back. He's already doing this today, but that was in his statement. That was in his speech. And you can see the contradiction here. I mean, it's as obvious as possible. He says, not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans are MAGA Republicans. But then he says the Republican Party is dominated and driven and intimidated by the MAGA Republicans. So it sounds like he's saying it's not the majority, but it is the majority because isn't the majority dominating the Republican Party? Like, who is this speechwriter? This is a contradiction, one paragraph apart from itself. He says these things are hard, like writing a speech. But I'm a president and I've got a duty to level with you. And so I think what he's saying is that the entire Republican Party, or at least, we've talked about it here at length, Donald Trump is up in the polls over Ron DeSantis by, double digits in many polls, most polls, right? 51 to 20 or something in many polls. So are all of those people now MAGA Republicans? He says all of those people, I think, right? All of those people, he says MAGA Republicans don't respect the Constitution. They don't believe in the rule of law. First of all, who just today or recently came out and passed what could be $1 trillion student loan policy without observing the Constitution? Did he go through Congress to do that, or did he do it unilaterally? It was the latter. So his administration has not been respecting the Constitution or property rights. They got overturned by the Supreme Court on CDC rules on all sorts of issues. They've been dumping all over the Constitution for years now. Says they don't recognize the will of the people. They refuse to accept results of elections. I speak state after state and blah, blah, blah. Says MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there's no right to choose, where there's no right to privacy, contraception, and others. He says they fan the flames of political violence. They are the mobs that storm the Capitol, brutally attacking law enforcement, with water bottles that your DOJ is charging the Proud Boys with. Not as insurrectionists. He says they see their MAGA failure as preparation for the upcoming elections. I think they're going to do something about the elections big time. Yeah, that's going to be the next shoe to drop. Watch. They tried everything last time to nullify the votes, and this time now we have to be cautious about it. He says now Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans, Biden is echoing a quote from a federal judge, calling them a clear and present danger to our democracy, taking cover from the federal judiciary. MAGA Republicans are a clear and present danger to our democracy. The President of the United States. But while the threat to democracy is real, he says, I want to say as clearly as we can, we're not powerless. What are you going to do, Joe? We are not bystanders. There are far more Americans than there are extremists, he says. And it's within our power to stop the assault. We're a nation of hope and blah, blah, blah. We are at an inflection point. I agree with him on that one. We certainly are. Has this ever happened before? Did Lincoln come out and say this about the South? I don't know. Maybe he did. But what happened after that little debate? Why would Lincoln be saying that? Because they were in the middle of a civil war. Is that where we are? I believe we're at an inflection point that America must choose to move forwards or backwards. Either you're with me or you're not. MAGA Republicans have made their choice. They embrace anger. They thrive on chaos. They live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies. But together, he says, we can choose a different path. I know this nation and you honors our Constitution. We don't deny it. This guy is so demented. We're a democracy at our core. He says here, history tells us that any blind loyalty to a single leader like Trump and the willingness to engage in political violence is fatal to democracy. Did Trump raid any political enemies, their houses with guns and federal agents? Did Trump do that at all? Or did Joe Biden and his DOJ do that? Biden mumbles out, he says, for a long time we've told ourselves that democracy is guaranteed, but it's not. I agree with him. It is not, my friends. And these psychopaths are trying to take it away. He says MAGA Republicans are the ones that are destroying it. But we're not going to let that happen. We're going to prevail. He says you saw law enforcement brutally attacked on January 6th, some of them with water bottles that were thrown and charged in indictments. I'm not making that up. They indicted somebody assaulting an officer with a water bottle. On top of that, there are public figures. So my point on that, right? It's not just to say they got attacked with a water bottle. That's what they're calling assault, right? That's what they're talking about. Brutal attacks, assaults. On top of that, there are public figures today, yesterday and the day before, calling for violence, saying this is inflammatory. It's dangerous. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't be pro-insurrectionist and pro-American. They're incompatible. He's drawing hard lines in the sand, saying, I will defend our democracy with every fiber of our being, and I'm asking you to join me. And so we ask ourselves, what does that mean? You know, what is that? He has a lot of power. He's doing a lot of things without any oversight of Congress or any affirmations or backing of Congress. Doesn't care what the Supreme Court has to say about most things. What's he going to do? He says throughout our history, we've made the greatest progress coming out of our darkest moments, like you're hearing in that bullhorn. Somebody was honking at him, shouting at him, F Joe Biden or something. He says MAGA Republicans look at America and they see carnage and they see darkness and despair. They spread fear and lies, lies told for profit and power. All MAGA Republicans, my gosh. Lies for profit and power. Wow. He says, I see a different America. Unlimited future like President Eisenhower. I want water systems and high-speed internet. We can make America safer and blah, blah, blah. Now he says, look, I know last years have been pretty rough. And he details some of this, but he says, you know, American manufacturing has come alive and the future is going to be made in America no matter what all the white supremacists and the extremists say. All those white supremacists are standing in the way of American manufacturing, aren't they? Yeah, in the heartland of America. They're just stopping all of it from happening. Yeah. I made a bet on you, says Joe, the American people. Talking about the darkness of Charlottesville and talking about gun violence and insurrection. We're going to... This guy is out of his mind. Okay, listen to what his speechwriter wrote for him. He says, light. Light's going to be visible now. Light is now visible, and we can see the light. Light that will guide us forward, not only in the words, but in actions. Actions for you, for your children, and for your grandchildren, for America. He says, even in this moment, with all the challenges we face, I give you my word as a Biden. I've never been more optimistic about America's future, not because of me, but because of who you are. Biden says, we're going to end cancer as we know it. Mark my words. We're going to create millions of new jobs in a clean energy economy. We're going to think big. We're going to make the 21st century another American century because the world needs us. Not on the politics of grievance, but on a future we can build together. So Joe Biden's going to end cancer as we know it. Mark my words. That's pretty damn amazing. Wow. That's awesome. I'd love that. First of all, I support that 100%. Yeah, I'd love to do that, Joe. I'd love for you to do that, just like you cured COVID. So, all right, so he's going to end cancer as we know it with just the snap of his fingers. It reminds me of Barack Obama. Remember when he said, the tides are going to stop rising? and we're all sitting there going, what is he talking about? Is he Jesus? How is he going to do this? I don't know how that's going to work. So Biden's going to cure cancer for us. That's great. And yeah, we're not going to have divisive culture wars. Now, what is this, his word as a Biden? What does that have to do with anything? I mean, what does that mean? Somebody's going to pay him $1 billion or something? Like Hunter's going to wire some money? Or what does that mean? Nobody cares about his word. We'll just leave it at that. The MAGA Republicans, says Joe, believe that for them to succeed, everyone else has to fail. I don't think that's true. They believe America, not like what I believe about America. I ran for president because I'm fighting for the soul of America. Folks, it's up to us, he says. Democracy begins and it will be preserved, and we the people, habits of the heart, and so on. Our democracy isn't perfect. It hasn't always been. Notwithstanding the folks you hear on the other side there, he says, they're entitled to be outrageous. This is a democracy. But history and common sense and good manners is nothing they have ever suffered from. But history and common sense tells us opportunity is knocking at our doors. The idea, opening doors. Our task is to make our nation great and free. It's our duty, 2022 and beyond. That's our soul. That's who we are. And he says that for the next 200 years, we'll remember where we came from. And he says, and he had the weirdest ending. He said, and may God protect our nation, and may God protect all those who stand, watch over our democracy. God bless you all. Democracy is what he said. Thank you. And it was a weird outro. He's like, God bless you all. Democracy. It reminded me of the Howard Dean scream. Remember that one? We're going to go to the White House, and we're going to go to Washington, and we're going to go to Kentucky, and we're going to take back the White House. Yeah. And he just kind of said, democracy. Now, it was a very weird ending as well, because Joe Biden wasn't apparently done then. He actually came back and he said, he tried to say something else on the way out. Here is Biden finishing his speech, and he says, thank you, we're done. And his caretaker, Jill Biden, comes to cart him away. She drops him off and don't want him walking alone or, talking to the press or anything. So she picks him back up and carts him back through the hellish gates of hell. And he tries to say one final thing before he is skedoodled on out of there. Here is the president.
God bless you all. Democracy. Thank you.
Where am I going? Now watch. He's got to pick up the mic. Oh, shoot. Did you see his eyes? So he walks back out, right through the gates of hell. Right through the gates of hell. Now, he's giving thumbs up to the Marines who are like, God, what are we doing here? Yikes, right? And so he just walks out of there. Now, watch his eyeballs when he realizes that mic's not on. Okay, he looks like he just sort of made a big boo-boo or something. What does he say? Like, Happy Friday? What does he say? What is this? Happy Friday. Look at that face right there. He's like, what'd I do? The mic's not on. Shoot. He puts the mic back down. you know somebody on the mic on the soundboard was like hitting the panic button. Turn it off, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. Don't let him say a dang thing. And he realizes, oh yeah, I'm not supposed to talk there. And so the Jill's like, we got to go, honey. It's time to go back to bed. Right. So that is the president.